the condition disclosure. Whenever you get to the bottom, we'll need you to sign it. And that's just a statement of review that you have had an opportunity to review the document. It's not acceptance of any particular condition outlined in there.
Okay.
So, and while she's looking at that, then I'll do my CMA real quick. And typically I would open up a quick search, pull up the house.
So is this a question or is this a let it roll thing? I just started recording it, so right in the middle of that.
So
But
you could. It's your video.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we
want
could. I didn't know.
questions
I recorded it kind of went through. Of course, iMovie cut this.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
But long story short, I was gonna say if you wanted, let you know when I started it. I don't know if you want to start from the beginning or whatever, but I was gonna ask with the CMA, what if like it's one of these kind of harder CMAs to find, and because sometimes I could take 45 minutes really looking through kind of the area and trying to figure out.
Okay,
the
so
best.
typically when I'm looking for a CMA, when I'm trying to put together the CMA, I'm looking for 3 comps, right? I'm not looking for huge ones. Sometimes you get them,
Yeah.
but sometimes you don't. Actually, I ran these numbers downstairs and it came up with like 200 comps. In Colonial Acres, they've sold in the last 3 months. But when you put in bathrooms, it became a normal number very quickly. So you may have to, but they've got something to look at. So it may take you a few minutes, but it shouldn't take you a hugely long time. 3 months back, 64 houses, and this particular, it's Colonial Acres. This particular house has 2 baths, which is significant. So I want at least 27. So that gives us a normal CMA.
Are you just pulling up closed?
Mm-hmm. Within the last 3 months. Okay. So here's my CMA. And I'll print that off. I don't know what it says, but I'll leave it up here just in case I do need to edit it some more. But in here, in the short CMA, you'll see your sales price to list price ratio. That's significant. Your average, your minimum, your max. And then also your closing costs that are paid. Your average, your minimum, your max. That's this column right here. And so I print that off, and this is actually a shorter version. But what I do, you've looked at that, and now I'm going to go. Get your square footage out of Mardea, which is 1852. Times your minimum price per square foot, which is $81.24. On this one, $68.72 and $79.49.
So question, just because it's on the property condition disclosure,
Yes.
says the sunroom has separate heating and air. Is that included in the 1800 or is it totally separate?
It is most likely included in the
Okay.
1800 because it does have heat and air.
Okay.
But we'll know for sure when you get your appraiser, they outline what is actual square footage. I'll look for your calculator downstairs. I couldn't find it.
It's in the middle drawer.
All right, so I'm trying to get to a calculator that's quick. 18.52 times 81.24
Need me to narrate?
You could sing in the background.
Hush now. I'm doing my best. And quite honestly, most of the time when I'm doing this, I'm around the corner at those computers there. Because it takes the pressure off from being right there with them.
Mm-hmm.
Am
You're so pretty.
I making you nervous?
I'm all flustered.
Yeah, you got it. I'm sure you are.
Okay. So here you can see that they are paying closing costs in this neighborhood. This shows what the sellers have paid for the recent sales here in the last 3 months. Up to 6% it looks like, but some not at all. The average sales price to list price ratio is 96. So we wouldn't expect to negotiate more than 5% off of the list price.
With the closing cost or without?
With the closing cost or without, depends on the motivation of the seller. So
But I mean, it's a 96 with the closing cost or without?
it
you
is.
think?
It is.
With.
It is with.
Okay.
Correct. And so your minimum price, your average price per square foot is $81, which would price your house out here. Cut off on the listing sheet. Is it on the price? Is the price on the price?
It's not on there.
So they are somewhere between average and no, they are.
They're between. Yeah, they're a lot higher. I can make a difference.
$179. So they're priced somewhere between average and best. We've looked at enough homes in that in that neighborhood to know that this is better than average home, so it's certainly worth more than this. But whether or not it's worth up to this or that will be up for us to decide.
Okay, so tell them how you figured that, what you did.
So what we've looked at is these are your averages, and so we've had a conversation that this is what they might be able to expect in closing cost on average, up to 6%, but as little as nothing, right? We've explained to them that the list price to sales price ratio is on average this 96%, but no more than 94% of list price. So that gives them a ballpark to work in. And then our particular house is 1,852 square feet, multiplying by your average minimum and highest price per square foot. Average is if this house was an average house for this neighborhood, it would sell for about $150. They're listed at $167, so it's certainly not the most. But we'll try to negotiate your best price somewhere between here and there, between the 179 and the 150. So that's what I would tell them. And we would not wouldn't draft an offer below 150 because we've been in the house. We know that it's at least average or better. Right? So that gives them a range. So now let's.
Your customer's going to ask you what you would offer.
We'll talk about it as we go through.
Okay.
I am not going to give them an answer in most cases.
I don't either. That's I said I can't make the offer for you, or tell you what.
I can tell you what the market says. You know, the market says it's going to sell somewhere between 150 and 179, and they're at 167. You know, most people are thinking they're buying a great house, or they're not buying it, right?
What is this 8124? That's price per square foot?
Hmm?
The 81
Just the average.
It's your average price per square foot.
average price. Okay, gotcha.
Last one's just a bit skewed. I was working with round numbers.
And that's only 3 months. If you don't really get solid, numbers, you go out 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever go out? I mean, I guess you could go out 12.
No.
The appraiser
no.
won't go out further than 12 unless you're at some remote property that there's really nothing to compare it with. But as a whole, the appraiser
They won't
can
go
only
out
go
12 for value.
Mm-mm.
That's good to know.
6 months.
All right. So lines 1 through 10 identify you, the buyer, Melissa Thompson, and the seller, and the property address. And yes, I am a cut and pasting fool because I cannot type, and I tell them that because it's the truth. And I don't make mistakes when I do that. All right. Lines 11 through 20 say that anything attached to the property stays with the property. That includes built-in appliances, garage or remote swimming pool equipment, things of that. Lines 21 through 25 is where we would identify things that you may want to go with the property that don't traditionally transfer, like the refrigerator. Is that something that you wanted to
Yes.
negotiate with the
Mm-hmm.
seller? And what about the play set in the back? Did you want that?
I want it removed.
All right. So we're going to put those things in this second section between lines 26 and 28. I don't remember thinking of seeing anything else that was an eyesore that you would want to be removed. Do you?
No.
No. We're going to mark this box here on line 33 saying that we do not wish to assume any leases. Lease things might be cable equipment, alarm equipment, things of that nature. We just want the house, and we're going to ask the seller to deal with any debts that they may have associated with it themselves. Lines 38 through 46 talk about price, and we'll come back to this, but it needs to be balanced with whatever amount of closing costs that we ask for as well. You're getting a 95% conventional loan. This is the first of 3 contingencies built into the contract to protect your earnest money should something go awry. If you read any sections of the contract after we leave here today, I recommend you read starting at line 63, talking about your loan obligations. I will do my best to make sure you stay on track with the things that are laid out in this portion of the contract, but ultimately, I can't help you with your loan. So, we're not going to make this part of the contract. We are not waiving any contingencies. Lines 101 through 113 talk about your second contingency, which is the fact that the house has to appraise. If the house doesn't appraise, you don't have to buy it, or the seller can lower it to the appraised value once it's been determined by the appraiser. Lines 114 through lines 123 talk about seller's expenses. We're not really going to focus on those. Lines 130 through 139 talk about what are typical buyer's expenses. These are the fees that we are asking the seller to pay if we ask them to contribute towards your closing costs. What is customary is in this market is for the seller to pay for the cost of the title search and the buyer to pay for the mortgagee's policy and owner's policy. These are title insurance policies. The mortgagee's policy will be required, but the owner's policy is optional, but it is only a nominal fee after the expense of the buyer of the mortgagee's policy. We are going to close with our closing attorney downstairs with Realty Title. Unless, are you a member of any kind of legal fund through your employer that contribute to those types of costs?
Work with FedEx, so they have a list.
I'm familiar with that list, and I know of one lender here in Germantown and one closing attorney here in Germantown on that list, and one in Bartlett. Which one's more convenient for you?
This area.
You get wrong
Bartlett.
Right. Anyway, earnest money. We're going to ask that the earnest money, which is trust money, it's good faith money that you put down on your property. Anyway, typically about 1% of the purchase price. I usually round down to the nearest 500. So in this particular case, I would recommend that you put up $1,500 in earnest money. Is that going to be an issue?
No, that'll be fine.
And that will come to you as a credit at the time of close. So let's just say the seller was paying all of your closing costs and your down payment was 3%. What you would bring to close would be 3% less this $1,500. This talks about the legalities of how the listing company is supposed to handle the earnest money. When do you want to close? Lender can get you closed in as little as 30 days, and you may want to have had it with a couple of days to negotiate with the seller. What is convenient for you?
The middle of June.
Is there a particular, so we're talking about the week of the 12th or the week of the 19th?
The week of the 12th.
Is there a particular day of the week that works best for you?
Thursday the 15th.
All right, and we're going to ask for possession with delivery of deed. It is not uncommon for a seller to ask for a couple of days after closing. But we'll see if they count that or not. Prorations, you'll get a credit for their portion of the taxes to go into your escrow account, same with association fees, title and conveyance. This just says that the seller has to give you clear and marketable title with no defects. The deed to be made out in your name as written above. Lead-based paint,
It does.
does apply. Starting with line 238 talks about your rights to inspect the property before making a final decision. That includes a termite inspection as well. We have 15 days to complete those inspections.
Can I inspect it myself?
No, we will give you a list of inspectors that you can choose from. And then once you can either negotiate repairs, accept it as is, or terminate the agreement and walk away. If you choose to negotiate repairs, we have roughly 5 days to get that second negotiation worked out. We'll do a final inspection the day before close to make sure that the house is in equal to or better than condition, and when we saw it last, and also to ensure that any repairs are completed to your satisfaction. Survey and flood certification. Is the survey something you thought that you wanted, or have you given it any thought? All right. Well, we'll make sure that we get that ordered for you for the attorney to review. Insurability. In many cases, insurance companies can have an opinion about the condition of the house that you buy. They will be curious about things like roofs. So don't wait until the end of the contract, just before close, before you touch base with your insurance person. If they want to weigh in, we want to know early, sooner rather than later. Waste supply and disposal, it's city. Disclaimer, This is a paragraph that mirrors a complete form that I'm going to have you sign later. Brokerage speaks to how I get paid. We're going to ask the seller to pay for a home warranty. Now $440. Survival clause. If anything is supposed to be done after closing, that remains part of this agreement. Terminology, the single means plural and the plural means singular. And what is most important is here is if there's a performance deadline that falls on a weekend or holiday, it rolls over to the next business day. Responsibility to cooperate is just that. Notices in person or overnight delivery or faxes are just as legally binding as hand sign. Risk of loss. Tree falls on the house and it's more than 10% damage, you don't have to buy it. Severability, legal stuff. Let's talk about closing costs. You talked with Ludi, and what kind of cash did you have to put down towards this? Do we need some help with closing costs, or do you have that in addition to your down payment?
I need 3% in closing.
Lastly, since we're asking for 3%, you've seen the comps, you know our range. Where did you want to start?
At 150.
I don't think it's enough to get it done, but you got to start somewhere.
So you would just do whatever they said.
In most cases, I would, because they've got the numbers, and there is justification for that price.
What if they said 127?
What if they said no? If they said 127, I would say there is no data to justify that position.
Okay.
You know, I'll do it because that's my job to do what you want me to do, but we have nothing to stand on, no argument that we can create to justify that kind of pricing.
So what are you saying that number came from then? The 127 here.
Because that is the worst house in the neighborhood.
Okay.
This is not the worst house in the neighborhood. Okay. We know we're above one. We know we're at least average or better.
Okay. Just want to see what you do.
I wouldn't balk on the 150, but
Okay.
I'm probably not ever going to work with you again. I can't help stupid. Anyway, so then I would go and I would print it off, and the rest of it I would complete by hand, and I would come back over it, or I would bring it back in here. Is your name spelled correctly? And we'd go over it line by line in front of her. Is your name still spelled correctly? Yes.
Okay.
And property address. Purchase price to be $150. It is contingent upon you getting a 95% FHA loan. It's contingent upon you getting an appraisal. Our attorney to be Ron Poe, and for us to pay for the mortgagee's policy and owner's policy. Earnest money made out to Cronlike in the amount of $1,500. Due within 3 days. Did you bring your checkbook?
I did.
Okay, good. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to write the check now, and I'll keep it with the file. If we come to an agreement, I'll deliver it to the listing company. If we do not, you can either pick it back up here or I can void it, whichever you choose.
Okay.
Deed to be made out in your name. 15-day inspection period, 5-day resolution period, do a final walkthrough the day before close. Asking the seller to pay $440 for a home warranty, and for the seller to pay 3% of the purchase price towards closing cost. Everything's correct. Sign here.
Put in, Lydia told us to put in escrows and prepays.
Yeah, so that sentence would actually be 3% of foreclosed buyers' closing costs, prepays, and
Okay.
fees.
And fees.
And fees.
Okay.
Mhm. And fees. And so you've signed there, and then we just roll on. This is a VA addendum, so it doesn't apply. Throw that in the trash. Disclosure of relationships. This just outlines my duties to you specifically and to all parties in general, but basically it says that I will work with honesty and I will work in your interest. It does, and I typically circle this, it does, Crowlite does charge a base commission of $195 on all transactions. Don't you dare say you don't want to pay it. Anyway, and so then I would have them sign that form, and I typically work with a non-exclusive, but y'all work with whatever you want, but I would just, this is a buyer's representation agreement, which just says that I'm going to represent you for this particular transaction. However, you are not obligated to work with me beyond this, if this deal falls apart, nor you.
So that's the difference in the exclusive. The exclusive would be longer beyond just that property.
Yes.
Exclusive just has a time.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
they're
what I'm
they're yours. They can't technically do anything, and so you have to. You really should provide a higher level of service to exclusives because they can't really call another agent to go show them another house, which my level of service was always the same, but I have fired a client or two, and that's why I don't sign the exclusives because myself.
Will Crowlite pursue it if they do?
So
If they do go after you've got.
that's up to you to pursue.
If you find out through the grapevine that they're buying another
That's-
property,
yeah.
you could bring it up.
Crowlite will support your push,
Mhm.
right? But Crowlite will not pursue if you're not pushing them. So they'll support you, but they don't do it for you.
I honestly think if you get them to sign anything, they feel committed.
Absolutely.
I mean, so even if you have the non-exclusive, no, this is just, we're going to start working on that too to give you the verbiage for that. But I truly believe when I get a listing agreement, the pre-printed part of the listing says it's for 6 months. But my spiel is like, okay, 2 things. First off, I'm not holding anybody hostage.
Mhm.
It's like, this is the deal today. I'm sorry, but life changes. I am not that agent to go. Nope, we signed it today. I don't care that you're getting divorced or getting back together, whatever the case may be. Or I tell them, if you're not happy with me, you can have your listing back. I mean it. Nobody's ever fired me, honestly. But still, I want them not to feel like they're sucked into the situation that they don't know, what the outcome's going to be. But I do try my best to get them to sign it before I leave, even if, I have one down there now, the one on Garrett Street. I don't think they're ever going to list, even though they've signed something with me, But they're not listing with somebody else because they've already signed with me. It's just the timing. They don't feel like they can find another house. But I think if you get them to sign anything, because if they go somewhere else, I don't know. You could pursue it, but are you going to? It's aggravating, and yes, believe me, that's happened to us.
Well, it happened to that agent that Zach wrote that
Yeah,
contract for.
yeah. Oh, good grief. She's so funny. She's at the Cordova office, but she called me and wanted to know who just sold my house that we just got the contract on. And so I told her the names, and she said she had a contract with them. Well, it's not my beef, and she's so sweet, but I told her who wrote it and everything, but it doesn't really matter because we've got a bound contract with these people. But she was like being friends with the parents of the kids.
Oh,
So it's like, it just happens to all of us, but what she can do about it, or what will she do? Nothing.
Because truthfully, neither one of these are any more legally binding unless you want to go sue your client. You can't really take it up with the agent.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
Right.
And
Unless
their fault.
Unless they
Right.
knowingly did it and
Right.
Whatever, but that's hard to prove too. So,
Yeah.
and you don't make any money suing clients, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's one piece of paper instead too.
It costs you $1,000 too
Mm-hmm.
with errors and omissions
Yeah.
insurance.
Yes. This is a business disclosure. Should you do business with anybody associated in this building, Realty Title, Pinnacle Bank, members of our board of directors sit on their board of directors, and so we have to disclose that relationship, but you are not obligated to use those folks. Designated agency, do y'all know it's designated agency anytime you work with another public agent? Yes.
And you'll see, I see tons of times when I get a contract that the other side, if you go sell Keller Williams, it's not designated agency. You're just representing the buyer. The only way it's designated is because it's under Carlike, and I don't really have the listing. It's really Dick and Harold, so that's why we're designated. I'm the designated agent of the listing, and you're the designated agent for the buyer. But any other company, you're the agent for the buyer. Period. Even though they may sign the designated agency, it's
may
not our
not
problem.
know who
They may
are,
not know, but yeah.
But we like to know who they are.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. This references that one paragraph, but it basically says that you're not going to hold me accountable for any representations that I may make regarding the structural integrity of the home, the condition of the roof, inspection items, but rely on surveyors, home inspectors, roofers to tell you about those types of things. This is the TAR form.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's different. They changed it.
This is the TAR form.
Uh huh.
All right, so we now have the TAR form.
It's not ours.
Nope. Interesting.
Huh.
Oh, but here it is again. That is ours. You only need one of these. You do not need both. Do you care, Melissa?
I don't.
No.
But that's weird.
And if you see this signed by the seller and you get your buyer to sign this, that's fine.
That's enough.
That's enough.
You don't have to sign their form.
Right. As long as there's a buyer on one and a seller on one, that's fine. Authorization for disclosure and description. This gives the lender and closing attorney permission to talk to me about a real file. And I'm going to go, this form was not online, but I'm going to go ahead and check one of these boxes and so we can sign it. Did you want to get a lead base paint inspection or no? So we're going to waive it, and then I've got a book that I'm going to get you before we leave. Any questions?
No, I don't think so.
All right, fantastic. Well, congratulations. You bought yourself a house. Let me go get a few things and put it in order, and I'll be right back. So typically I would go and get our inspection list paper. I stick it on top of their contract with a business card.
Yeah.
And I